I worked with my therapist for 3 years, and when she finally retired, I started to work with another therapist. And for the sake of anonymity, I'll call her Iris. I hadn't been working with Iris for very long when one afternoon I showed up at her office completely stressed out. She calmly got up out of her chair, walked over to her desk, picked up a 4x5 card, walked back over, handed it to me, sat back down in her chair and said, "Shawn, why don't you read that?" I sat there in my chair firmly holding that card, and I began to read the Chinese proverb that was written on it. Tension is who you think you should be. Relaxation is who you are. I couldn't move for what felt like several minutes after reading that. You see, tension, which often caused chronic pain in my body and drove me into panic mode over and over and over again, was all I could remember. I couldn't even imagine what my life would look like without it. And I never realized that before until that very moment that I was sitting there in Iris's office. From that time on, apart from cognitive behavioral therapy, Iris began to work with me on brain-regulating methods like mindfulness meditation, progressive muscle relaxation, and deep breathing. She had me listening to these guided relaxation downloads from Dartmouth College of Medicine. And it was while I was listening to these downloads that I started to learn how to apply some of these mind-body practices. She shared with me that there had been some studies done which indicated that when traumatized people engaged in these practices for long periods of time, they could actually begin to rewire their brains, so to speak. Do you know the hope that came back to me after hearing that? With my first therapist, I learned that I had so many of the signs which indicated that my brain had been wired differently because of trauma. But with my second therapist, Iris, I started to learn that there were some things that I could do about it. I came to the place of not only feeling different in my own skin, but those around me who knew me well could see the changes that had happened in my life. A major measure of healing came into my life. And I also gained some valuable tools that I still find very helpful today. It was during that last year and a half while I was still working with Iris that I started to write my book, Thorns of Chester Street. Now, Chester Street was a street that I grew up on when I was a boy, and it represented pain and torture for me. Yes, it was difficult for me to write down some of those stories in my childhood, to string together some of those compartments that I had to keep separated in order to survive in my own head. But it was also incredibly healing. Healing in knowing that I was creating something that was giving that little blonde boy a voice that never had one. And healing in knowing that I was creating something that had the potential of helping many other people find their voice. During the last year of finishing up my book, I couldn't get away from some of the questions that were churning in my head. Shawn, how different could your life have been if you had found trauma recovery when you were 15 instead of in your early 40s? Is there something that you could do to begin helping children find this at a much earlier place in life so that they have their whole life ahead of them? And that's where the vision for starting the foundation came to me.